All right, hey, welcome back to the MMA Vivisection with Bloody Elbow. We are here to talk about Invicta FC9 this week. It is one of the only major MMA events going on this week, much to my surprise. And joining me are two of Bloody Elbow's moderators, Vic Rodriguez and Dio, or should I
Damon
just
doesn't
go with
want to go.
Dio?
Dio's good. Yeah.
All right. And we are going to be talking about Invicta. So thanks for joining me, guys.
Good to be here, finally.
Finally. Oh yeah. You asked to be on
Yeah,
the
it's
next Invicta after the last one, and we've been pushing it off. We've been telling Invicta to push their events back ever since. We'd really like it if you guys just never held another card.
Yeah, exactly.
oh man, I
We'll
knew
just
Zane
stick to
Simon.
banning people in the comment section for no apparent reason.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I knew Zane Simon was powerful and had pull in many circles. I didn't expect that this was some sort of some sort of manifestation of his abilities. But damn, that's something else. Hey, look, we got you back on. Don't worry about it, Theo. It's good to have you. So
Yes.
And with
let's
another
make the
Invicta
best of it.
card right around the corner, depending on how you do here, this is a little trial. We'll start you off soft, but we'll take you up, maybe really crank it up, get you ready for the big leagues with the next one.
All right. All right. I apologize for not being as handsome as, say, a Patrick Wyman, but, still think we're the pound for pound most handsome bloody elbow trio.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
far.
don't throw anything Patrick's way. He's doing fine. That dude gets more than enough.
oh wow.
All right.
Ugh.
So, big thing. First things first is this is last card was Invicta FC8. That was headlined by Michelle Watterson versus Yasuko Tamada, who's like 55, 60. Was that?
I think
Um,
that the official was 47 years old, which
yeah.
is ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. Good show overall, but that was kind of a weird way to cap that off. Like it was a good show that ended up with a fight that I don't think any like. It was fun to watch Michelle Watterson show off, but it wasn't
Not against
like
a 47-year-old
yeah.
punching bag. That was like it's very rare that I'm sitting here cringing during a fight, and that was one of them.
I'll tell you what, it's not as it's almost as bad and as painful, maybe not on the same degree, as watching Anthony Johnson beat up Little Nog, and you're just sitting there like, man, that's somebody's dad. You know, like
Exactly.
that's just really terrible to watch after a while. Like, and then and what state athletic commission would allow a woman who's 47 years old? I mean, I have no problem with her competing, but
Right.
is it a thing to have her fight for a title against a spry Michelle Watterson, who's arguably in her athletic prime? But outside
She
of
was
that
tough as hell. So
blemish,
that was, she took more damage than people half her age would have. So that was pretty impressive on her part. But still,
Yeah, but still
yeah.
half her age. I mean, that would be like a fighter in their prime.
yeah,
If it were at least a competitive bout, I don't think there would be as much of an objection to it. I mean, taking damage is admirable, but I'm here to see competition, and after a while, it just starts to feel a little icky. But still, that's not a detriment to Watterson or as much to Invicta, so long as they don't continue that as some sort of trend.
Yeah.
right.
The other takeaway from that is Invicta's got a new strawweight champ, Katja Kankampa, Killer Bunny.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
guys convinced that she's like super legit, or does the fact that she was kind of getting beat up for most of that fight until she slapped on a sort of miracle submission in the end make you feel like she's really just one fight away from losing that belt?
She's, I mean, I consider her to be legit, but I wouldn't consider her to be the best at 115. I mean, we all know the best have already been taken into the UFC, but um, I'd put her in probably like the top, just outside of the top five.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, it's one of those things where you know, it is. I think the best. She's a good fighter. She's scrappy, but she's definitely got a game that's not made to win consistently. Unfortunately for her, it's a
Yeah.
guard heavy submission work game, and that's
and
Not.
we saw
No.
how that worked against. And she tried the same game plan against JoJo Calderwood, and we saw how that happened. If you
Yeah, I mean,
can't do anything outside of that, then
whenever when you don't hit the miracle submission, you just end up on the bottom
right.
for most of the
Yeah,
fight.
and but something does need to be said for her, I guess, that real sort of heart of the champion. It's more than a cliche, and in this case, it's actually applicable. She stayed in it after being dominated for 4 rounds by Egging, who hats off to her for doing what she did, because I knew it was going to be a good fight. I knew she was going to put on a hell of a performance. I wasn't expecting it to be to that degree, and for Katya to come out and to really just slap that on at the end, just keep her head in the game. That's more than. That says something pretty special. I don't know what her ceiling is or if she's hit it already, but she's got some work to do. And as champion, she's going to be tested. So I mean, it's kind of exciting. It's almost like Emmanuel Newton, who keeps winning despite his deficiencies. It's almost not quite to that degree. It's probably not the best example, but it's the closest I can think of right now. And that's going to be fun to see.
I mean, if she can start spamming that spinning back fist, we'll be good.
And so the other thing I noticed, I mean,
wasting kicks and annoying me.
but right after the other sort of big news was that kind of right after that event, that was Invicta's UFC debut and beyond, or UFC Fight Pass debut, and beyond watching Watterson and the announcer say fight, fight, fight for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good production and like solid all around. But the big thing is right afterward they announced 2 events in quick succession. Looks like they're really going to start trying to push a better schedule. I mean, not one every 8 months schedule, which is sort of the big thing you're looking for. Is that like a big positive sign for you guys? They were able to turn right around and say, okay, we've got our next 2 events set now that we're on Fight Pass?
You may handle those first.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it does seem to me, I don't think that this would be the kind of move that they would make if they weren't, number one, financially or fiscally solvent to actually, put these events on, and number two, if they weren't at least had certain assurances in place or made certain moves in advance to make sure that they had everything set up right. They're not going to try to get caught with egg on their face. They've been very careful as a promotion, and even though they've made certain mistakes, they've been good with a lot of their stuff when it comes to their planning. So I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. It just gets you more excited to see where they go from here and what this partnership with the UFC can bring. So I mean, it looks good to me.
Yeah, and it looks for me with the whole thing that they did with the tournament. I think it was a Tough Enough tournament that they had for a contract. Just like you said, they've set things in place to whereas they can keep going this way. It's a good thing for women's MMA because as we know now, it's just this is kind of like the boom that we had in men's MMA in 2005 when Tough happened. Before it was just kind of random guys fighting, and now you actually have athletes that are that have been training in martial arts a good amount of their lives are actually able to they're actually at their peak level to whereas they can actually pick things up and not just be random chicks fighting in a cage anymore.
Yeah, they definitely. I mean, women's MMA is starting to attract a lot more kickboxers and Muay Thai fighters and pro boxers and women or women who have had amateur athletic careers in other sports that didn't translate into pro careers. You're starting to find actually attracting consistent athletes rather than just people who like to fight, which is sort of the early incantations of MMA at every level, more or less.
There is a bit of a minor caveat to that, though, and that's also the fact that money in women's kickboxing and boxing may not be as easy to come by as it would be in MMA. The popularity of mixed martial arts has gotten to the point where it's easier for you to get more frequent fights and at least more of a guaranteed paycheck. I don't know what the pay is like in women's kickboxing or boxing, but I can't imagine that you're going to be it's going to be as easy for you to get this same kind of exposure and the same kind of schedule that you potentially have with MMA. So maybe that might be a factor too.
Yeah, I think I mean, from what I know of women's boxing, the idea of getting a triple-digit fight purse is like a golden goose kind of thing. It's like, it's like a holy grail kind of thing. Like, a couple of fighters have gotten somewhere around there, but nobody's making that kind of money.
Yeah, unless you're a Holly Holm or a Brick House or something like that, you're not going to.
Yeah, and even then, I think they're more like in the high doubles, like 80 or maybe for a fight.
Right.
Just not that kind of money there at all. So now we have, here we are with Invicta FC9 in front of us. It's not quite as stacked a card as Invicta 8, quite frankly. There's a lot more new names, a lot more unknown talent. Still looks to be a solid card. We're still getting a title fight and three of the better talents, I would say, in the sport at the top of it. But yeah, we shouldn't start at the top. We're going to start at the bottom and go through the prelims. First up is Kelly McGill versus Megan Goodwin. And I'm going to rely on you guys a lot for this undercard because a lot of these fighters are very new to me. They're new to Invicta. A lot of them are just new in general.
Yeah.
But Damon, what do you know?
On this one, these are two of the, well, they'll hands down be the tallest women on the card. It is going to be all limbs the whole way. Outside of that, I mean, they're both. Megan Goodwin, she's 3-0 amateur record, and Kelly McGill just has one fight to her name. So there really wasn't too much that you could grade them on. Vic might have found a little bit more on them, but from what I saw, it's going to look a lot like Jessamine Duke's fights, where it's just limbs. That's about it.
Lanky Muay Thai.
Yes.
Lanky Muay Thai. I like that. I like that. Lanky Muay Thai.
One up that at all?
Yeah, all right. Well, Kelly McGill, as mentioned, she's only had one fight to her name, and I think it was maybe, less than 30 seconds. It was a hell of a TKO. I mean, she seems to have a decent stance, but there really wasn't much to see other than the fact that she hits really, really hard, and she seems to have decent form. You got Megan Goodwin, on the other hand, whose striking is not as crisp, it's not as measured, it's actually a little less organized. 3-0 as an amateur. This is her pro debut. She's got 2 submissions, really, really slick submissions. And she's at least very aware of her positioning, and she's always hunting for submissions, as is. But it's going to be interesting to see how she defends with her with McGill striking. We didn't see any of McGill's defense at all in that fight, so a lot of question marks. But this is one of those, and I've noticed this in some of the fights that we're going to see on this card, that the potential for excitement stylistically is going to be there, and this is going to be fun. This really looks on paper like it could be. The matchups have been made with that sort of mindset in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the second card under Kedzie as matchmaker, I believe.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So next up, we got Jenny Liu Shriver versus Jamie Moyle. And Victor, what do you know?
All right. Jenny Liu Shriver, she's 3-2 as an amateur, 2-0 as a pro. She ended up beating Rachel Cummins as an amateur. She's another fighter who's making some waves now. Jill Leibarger, also out of the Vegas scene. She beat her in a pro fight. She's very durable. She does absorb some damage, and she's always out there looking for submissions as well. But her striking defense is not maybe where it needs to be, and that's going to get her into some trouble. Her grappling defense, though, is very solid. Whereas Moyle, who's training at a Team Syndicate, as you may expect, very big focus on her boxing. 5-2 as an amateur. This is her pro debut. She had lost previously to Tisha Torres and Delaney Owen, who we saw in the previous Invicta event.
It looked
Very
very
measured
impressive.
with her striking. Yeah, her movement was pretty good. Her only losses have been by decision, and she's got a very, very punishing top control game. So that's going to be something to look out for as well.
Yep.
And I think the only real thing that I have to add to that is Shriver is incredibly tough. She was getting washed pretty bad against Rachel Cummins. She had her against the cage and just was kneeing her into oblivion before she toughed it out and ended up getting the armbar. But she is super durable. And the other thing that both of them have is they have a lot of amateur fights, which before this we really didn't see, too many fighters that had more than, 1, 2, or 3 fights. They both have more than 5 fights, so they already have a bit of, they're both. I mean, they're not like used to 5-minute rounds yet, but they do have a good amount of cage time, so they're not, completely going to be lost in. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's sort of one of the things that started happening within the past 3 or 4 years is you're starting to see even, men's professionals, a lot of guys are coming out with like a 10-fight amateur career and then going pro.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot more management happening at the early stages of a fighter's career now than there used to be. Classically, it was just sort of like, well, I went out with my buddies on the weekends and decided to start fighting, and then suddenly I made a career out of it.
Exactly. It's very much like boxing now, whereas you are getting those tailored fights to help you build your confidence and your skill level up before, getting thrown into the deep end like so many have before.
Unfortunately, for in women's MMA at the pro level, the deep end ends up being like 3 or 4 fights into your pro career a lot of times.
Yeah.
But okay, so Shannon Sin and Andrea Lee.
Well, that's also. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, Vic. Sorry, no, we don't have to move.
I was just going to say that it does, I guess, look like a sign of health in the sport that. Whereas before they were just hungry to get in and start getting paid, it's kind of good to see some of these fighters hone their craft in the amateur scene first and then really get into the pros. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it is. It'll do better things long term for the sport. The more amateur experience you're getting people, the better professionals you're producing, without question.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Andrea Lee, Shannon Sin, Damon or Dio. Sorry, I keep going back and forth.
That's good. Andrea Lee is. Well, first off, we'll start off by saying she is 10 years younger than Shannon Sin. Shannon Sin got into this really, really late. Shannon Sin is, very impressive physique. She is probably one of the more terrifying people that you'll see on the card. Between that and she's got some pretty intense eyes, but.
Yeah, that Sherdog photo is staring into my soul. I feel like I've just lost a small part of me. I went and clicked on it, and it's like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Shannon Sin's more of the grappler of the two. Andrea Lee has stated that she considers her ground game to be very underrated, but I actually think her stand-up is going to be a lot better than Shannon Sin. She's got a really good left hook. She has a tendency to spam it, so that could lead to Sin Tommy getting some takedowns. But all in all, they're both still pretty impressive. Andrea Lee probably has more of an upside at this stage, being that she's so much younger, has a little bit more experience. So.
Mm-hmm. Vic, seeing that any different at all?
I'm not sure really what the future is going to hold for either one of these, but maybe this fight might be the beginning for us to see where things will go. Shannon's 5-1 as an amateur with 2 TKOs. She's only 1-1 as a pro with a submission win. She's very strong. She's in very good shape. I mean, not just the eye test. She's one of those people that's stronger than she looks, and you can tell by how she maneuvers, how she sort of pushes people around. Very mean, very aggressive style, very basic boxing, but I am a little worried because she seems to freeze on her defense when she's standing. Incoming punches or head movement in her body don't seem to it doesn't seem to mesh very well. Whereas you have Andrea Lee, who's 1-0 as a pro, 3-1 as an amateur. Her only loss was a submission to World Series of Fighting's Kaitlyn Young, who we saw in the event 2 events ago. Keeps her composure very well. She seems to not be bothered as much by pressure, but she does get into a lot of trouble on the ground. She seems to end up in these really positions that are not very advantageous. In terms of her striking, she's very much a headhunter. She does throw some body shots, but they don't look like they've got the same oomph as the shots that she throws to the head. And I don't know if she's throwing them for show or just to distract the opponent, but I think she's going to be able to probably get Shannon into some real trouble if it stays standing. Yeah. So we'll see what happens there.
All right. Finally, on rounding out the prelims card and the part that I've been rather untutored about, we have the rare featherweight bout. Is that the only they're one of 2 featherweight bouts on the card, but pretty rare in women's MMA. Amanda Bell, Maria Hogard versus Maria Hogard-Jersa. Vic, what can you tell me about this?
All right. Well, starting off with Marie, she's quite the veteran, coming from the European scene out of Denmark, and she's 5-5 as a pro, no amateur fights. She's got a couple of losses to Danielle West. She fought Cindy Dandois, who's also on the card, Romy Rusin, Annalisa Bucci, who just fought last week in Bellator. She did beat Yana Kunitskaya, who's also out of the European scene, and Jarena Bars, who we might remember from Lion Fight, who beat the tar out of Cyborg in a hell of a fight. Yeah, who we'll be, I'm sure, getting to a little later as well. Very, very solid top game. Her striking is odd. She's one of those things. She's got one of those things where she just rushes ahead and tries to grab someone instead of steadying up her takedowns. And I'm not really sure how that's going to work or how she's beaten people that are considerably, really much better strikers than her with that kind of style. Whereas Bell is 2-2 as a pro, 1 submission and 1 KO, which, Dio, you might remember, this was the fight where she fought Marina Shafir, Ronda Rousey's training partner, and knocked her out hard. Yeah. That was, she
remember that.
It pretty bad. Yeah, that made the internet rounds pretty quick. Bell has 2 losses to, she's got a loss to Tamika Brents, also from an Invicta veteran, as well as Charmaine Tweet. She did beat Jessamine Duke as an amateur, and she's got a lot of raw athleticism. She hits really hard, very grinding in the clinch. The rest of her game seems rather basic. This will be a good test to see where she's at and if she's rounded out her game.
Damon?
I mean, as we said, Amanda Bell is coming off of probably the biggest win of her career against Marina Shafir, more so due to her association with Ronda Rousey than anything else. But in the beginning of her professional career, it was pretty lackluster. At Invicta FC4, the Tamika Brents fight was probably the dumpster fire of that card's fights. It just was not enjoyable.
Yeah.
No.
But she has looked good in her past 2 fights. She's very strong. Just really, really strong. And I'm very interested to see how she does against Hogard-Jersa, who kind of has that Hoist Gracie zombie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to think that it's there's a guy in the UFC, Carlos Enrique Silva. He does that too. It's just I like to think of it as like throwing your body at your opponent at all costs. It's just like I need to make contact with some part of your body, and then I can just hang on and suck you down.
Yeah, like it works on the European scene because it's the European scene, and that's the thing about like a lot of the fights, which we'll get to later on in the card. Like they'll have really good records against, low-level competition. It's the same thing that's happening in Europe now as what was happening in Japan in the early 2000s, Smack Girl and Jules and things of that nature, where it was just, you had some women that trained at the gym that promoters like, oh, hey, yeah, we need some fighters. Here you go. So it's kind of easy to look good against them. So, yeah.
All right, and that wraps up the prelims, and now we get to the fights that I've actually done a little bit of research for myself. First up is Amanda Brown, Liz McCarthy. Now, at least from what I've seen, these women are like super, super similar in their skill set. They both tend to be kind of brawl into the clinch fighters. They like having top control. They don't do all that well on the bottom. Neither are exceptional athletes, very scrappy. Damon, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of, this is definitely the, kind of a Mortal Kombat mirror match. Amber Brown is more of a boxer than anything else. Her submission game it's decent. Yeah, it's nothing fantastic. She's got a pretty good clinch game, some good knees. Liz McCarthy is more of a she's probably the little bit more athletic of the two. She's pretty creative with a lot of her submissions. She's done jumping triangles, jumping guillotines, and things of that nature. So, I wouldn't be surprised if, she could catch Brown in the clinch and try something like that. Like she has just spidered herself up into a triangle a few matches ago. So,
Vic?
Yeah, Amber Brown trains out of Fit NHB, which is not as popular a gym, but you've got Tim Means and Ray Borg in the UFC. They train there, and Crazy Horse, Charles Bennett, actually trained there for a bit. I don't know if he's still there because we're talking about Crazy Horse, Charles Bennett. Who the hell knows where that guy's at?
Probably
in
jail
again.
Exactly. Crazy Horse.
He's probably, what stings is that he's one of those guys who's probably in jail over some dumb shit right now, like I don't know, child support, back pay, or something like that.
Exactly.
But anyway, Amber Brown 3-1, all pro fights, 1 TKO, 1 submission. She had her lone loss to Emi Fujino, veteran in the Japanese circuit. Very clean boxing approach. It's a little more than basic. She's got a decent clinch game, and she got really solid submission defense. I've seen her kind of get out of some things that you think, oh, well, I thought this fight was going to be over real soon. But she's got a pretty good survival instinct that'll serve her well on the ground. Whereas you got Lightning Liz McCarthy out of Team Quest, who was 2-1 as a pro, 6-0 as an amateur with 3 submissions, one of them being a flying triangle, as Dio mentioned. She's got wins over Cassie Robb, who's an Invicta veteran, and lost to Jody Escobel. I think that was an amateur fight. I'm not sure. What happened?
It was pro.
Oh, thank you. Okay. She tends to absorb a lot of damage. She hits really hard, though, and she's always hunting for arm bars specifically. That must be like either her signature or a preference, or maybe it's just the nuances of MMA. It's probably what her style lends itself to, which I don't blame her because I love arm bars. So we're going to see what happens with this in the end. If it indeed hits the ground, it's very likely to be a lot of fun, or it could end up in some sort of ugly stalemate. But we'll see what ends up happening here.
All right. Next fight up then, Jody Escobel, Dolly Rivera-Kalanick. Both, to me, watching a bit of film on them, they're both kind of low output, boxing heavy fighters. I always think of Escobel when I watched her last fight. She fights like a wrestler, but she doesn't wrestle.
Yeah.
Like, it's that sort of like big winging overhands and then no shot to follow up. Real powerful, sort of compact fighter. Rivera-Kalanick's a little more of an outside, sort of peck away, throw a few 1-2s, maybe sprinkle a few kicks in there. In my mind, this looks like a fight that Escobel's probably gonna win based purely on athleticism and control.
Yeah.
But Vic, what are your thoughts?
All right. Well, first off, Rivera's been in a few heartbreakers, some fights that were probably she could have had a very good chance of winning, and she didn't. She's got losses to some very, very solid competition, though, including Felice Herrig, Angela Magana, Jessica Penne, Amy Davis, Mika Matsumoto, again from the Japanese scene. She did win one of her fights in Invicta against Angelica Chavez, and she's very strong for her size. But what ends up happening with both of them, they both seem to be looking for big counters. I'm not sure if, or maybe not so much Escobar as Rivera, but always seems to be looking for that sort of thing to kind of throw that big shot after someone throws a jab or something. I don't know if maybe timing or patience is maybe not there where it needs to be, but she does do a lot of her best work when she's able to grab someone and bully them against the cage. Whereas Escobar's 4-1 as a pro, 1-0 as an amateur. Her only loss was to Alex Chambers, who's now on the Ultimate Fighter, whatever it is this season, whatever funny name they choose to give it. Ended up beating Liz Mccarthy by decision and Jin Yu Frey in her last Invicta appearance in a fight where she was getting dominated thoroughly in the first round and came back and won in a very, very fun decision, I guess. It got more fun as it went along. Scrambles a lot, very resilient, very active, and as you mentioned, very athletic, which could be a deciding factor.
Damon?
Yep. Rivera Kalanick, she's the prototypical, WMMA journey woman. Almost a half and half record. Her last, she kind of has the tendency to, like, when she does engage or she sees an opening, she just kind of does the Vitor Belfort versus Wanderlei Silva, run forward, arm punch type deal. Whereas Escobar tends to go for, like you said, for that one big counter. Escobar is definitely going to have the athletic and strength, advantage here. Rivera Kalanick is, she got thrashed pretty badly against Jessica Penne. She dominated Angelica Chavez more so with just sheer pressure more than anything else. And then before that, it's, win, lose, win, lose, 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 win, lose.
Yeah.
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 Which also, I'm sorry.
What were you saying now?
No, I was just going to say that it's kind of a weird thing for women's MMA where you look at Rivera with her 8-7 record. If it were a man with an 8-7 record, it would probably be looked down upon a lot more. But I don't know. I don't think her record really says as much about her talent as it should.
Right.
So it's one of those things where it looks bad, but this is probably going to be a much better fight than it seems if you just look at the win-loss record.
Yeah, and her wins and her losses rather are against really good competition. So she's not just going out there and getting beaten by bums.
I do worry just a little bit that it's going to end up with them both frozen at range, waiting on the other one to initiate offense a little.
Definitely could happen because Escobar, before she almost got sent into the land of wind and ghosts by Jin Yu Frey, she just kind of stood there. She was just kind of happy with staying at range, and that woke her up a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. She seems to be like once she gets dazed and she actually knows that she's gonna fight, that's when she starts to pick up the pace.
Jamie Varner syndrome.
Exactly. I need to just reach the cusp of unconsciousness before I can
All right, so then we got a fight change next. It was Kaitlyn Young, supposed to be against Cindy Dandios. She's off the card due to visa issues, and has been replaced by Raquel Paului. And so Paului, if that's the right way to say it, she's been a pretty decent up and down kind of action brawler from what I've seen. Very much a likes to stay in the pocket and trade. Will shoot for a takedown when she gets the chance. Young, on the other hand, Young is basically just all brawl. That's how very much a live by the sword, die by the sword fighter.
Yeah.
I think the big question here, for me at least, from what I've seen, is whether or not Young is still competitive weirdly. I mean, she's about 8 or 7, coming up on 8 years into her career at this point. She's been around a while. Not really at the point where she'd necessarily be like past her prime or anything. She's only 29, but she definitely seems to have hit a skid where she's just not putting it all together and maybe hasn't quite made the competitive leap to stick with the newer class of fighters, I'd say. I guess I'm not entirely sure that Pa Louie is there in the same in that same class, but has the looks of a stand-up war. Damon, your thoughts?
This is definitely going to be the stand-up war. Kaitlyn Young, she was the first, like, I should say, sprawling brawler of WMMA. Probably the only thing that people really remember her from is completely shutting off Misha Takes Lights in that one-night tournament. And since then, it's just kind of been, she just never really, it's like she just kind of stuck with, okay, I'm good striking, and that's it. She's never really got it on the ground. She's kind of like the episode of Futurama where Bender gets put on his back and he can't get up. In her last 3 fights, that's basically been the same thing that's happened every time. When she's put on her back, she just doesn't know what to do. Liz Carmouche did it. Leslie Smith, Lauren Murphy, all of, give her credit. These are all really strong women. But she just does not, she just kind of just blanks out when she goes on the ground. But Palaui is definitely, she is like the bald bull. She rushes in, and like that first minute and a half, 3 minutes is going to be ridiculous. When she fought Sarah McMahon, it was the same thing. Like rushed in against Amanda Nunes. That was probably, if you took that one fight against Amanda Nunes, that is her style, encapsulated. Go out there, and it was, 2.5 minutes of craziness before she got choked out. But yeah, she is a brawler. She's decent enough on the ground. She's still been submitted quite a few times, but I have a feeling that she's probably going to be a little bit more versed there.
Yeah, she's not going to have to worry about getting submitted in this fight.
No.
Oh boy. I don't know. This is one of those fights that's, oddly enough, it seems to me, I was kind of excited to see Cindy Dandois fight again after a very long absence, but then I realized that due to her not being able to fight, this is actually a better fight in a way, because both Young and Paului are in a similar spot where they're both, I mean, Kaitlyn Young is 7-8 as a pro. Rocky is 3-4. Should be mentioned that Paului, all 4 of her losses, curiously enough, are by submission, and not only that, but they're coming at the hands of women that are markedly stronger than she is. I mean, Raquel Pennington, Amanda Nunes, Sarah McMahon, Sarah DeLelio. These are all pretty strong ladies, so they're not.
She's not losing them. It wasn't just like, she got there and just got choked out. She had defended a good bit before she got succumbed to it. So.
Especially the McMahon fight, which came midway through the third, more or less. I mean, she really does put up a hell of a fight. She's very, very scrappy, very, she's tough. She's very tough, much tougher and much better a fighter than what her record would suggest. And then you have the similar thing going on with Kaitlyn Young, who's lost to some really, really good competition. It's like she's like the springboard. She's like the good luck Chuck in a way, And I know I hate having to reference a terrible fucking movie, but I'll have to do it in this case because it applies. It's like the last people that she's lost to were the people that have gone on to eventually go on to better things, both in Invicta and in the UFC. She's got losses to Gina Carano, who, okay, not in the UFC, but she went on to do bigger things after that. She got a loss to Julie Kedzie, who she had beaten before. Liz Carmouche, Leslie Smith, Lauren Murphy, as already mentioned. I mean, there's nothing to be embarrassed about losing to those fighters. You just got to wonder if she's ever going to. Is it too late for her to adapt? Is there anything else that she can really do to progress from here? I mean, this is going to be a fun fight. This is just going to be straight up here. This is just going to be the action bout of the evening. As far as what it's going to mean for her later on, I don't know. This is just an odd one. But again, it's another one of those fights. Great credit to Julie Kedzie. Let's just put another fun one up there and see where it goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
Two more things. And like what I think is happening with Kaitlyn Young is like the same thing that kind of happened with the first generation of men's mixed martial artists that came up when it was just style versus style, and WMMA basically stayed style versus style up until about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So
maybe that's pretty. I would even say like 2
even like 2 years ago, yeah. So with her, I kind of think it might be a little bit too late to, unless she would have to completely change camps. They would have to tear her down from the ground up. Like she would basically have to do what happens at the Black Zillions, where if you're a submission artist, no submissions. We are going to teach you from the ground up how to do everything again, because it's kind of too late. And this is definitely a better fight because Cindy Dandui is she's just not good. When it comes to, she's got good wins, like her win over, Jarena Pars, who that we know from Cyborg fame, over Sheila Gaff, she lost that fight or she won that fight due to a illegal knee. But she's just not that great. She had, we already talked about the whole zombie takedown style. Like she literally at the beginning of the bell just rushes forward and just tries to grab, and that's it. And like in this point in the game, at the higher level, that's just not gonna work anymore. Which she might have been able to get that over on Kaitlyn Young. But yeah, that she's at the point at the age that she's at now, and how long she's been doing it, and the long layoff. This is definitely going to be the better fight.
Definitely, I can understand that. Now we get our co-main event, a great fight between top prospects. Something that everybody should be excited for if you're watching women's MMA. Mizuki Inoue, Carolina Kowalkiewicz. If that's reasonably how you say that. Kowalkiewicz is the KSW champ, I believe, isn't she? Or was, if I'm remembering.
I think she was. I'm not sure if that was.
I mean, she hasn't lost yet, so unless she vacated, I believe she's been the KSW champion. And Mizuki Inoue is basically the, along with Kankampa, one of the few great strawweights left to Invicta right now. One of the few really great talents out there not fighting for the UFC at 115 pounds. I like Kowalkiewicz. She looks like she's a pretty talented athlete. She's got a nice top control game. Don't see her beating Inoue. She doesn't have nearly the takedown game developed from what I can see. She's very much a head and arm throw kind of takedown. And unfortunately, that's one of the few things that really has yet to transfer out of women's MMA entirely, is that you still don't see a lot of women with a great shot who have a great single to double leg transition. There's a lot of, I'll go for this desperate head and arm throw, and when that doesn't work, I'll end up on bottom getting beat up.
Yeah.
Kowalkiewicz, the level of competition she's been fighting, I think Inoue is probably just going to be better everywhere. Damon, your thoughts?
I've said this many a times. Mizuki Inoue is probably, arguably, one of the best strikers in WMMA. I'd even go as far as saying I'd put her in the top 5 in MMA, period. Or not top 5, top 10, period. Her head moving's great. Really sharp punches. Doesn't have the most pop in her punches. If she did, she would have just destroyed Beck Hyatt had she had any power to it. Her clinch game's great. Like she does this, in her last fight against Beck Hyatt, does these like little. She'll have you in the clinch, and then she'll still leg kick you while in the clinch, which is something that you just don't really see, and that took a toll in that fight. Was it Kowalkiewicz?
Kowalkiewicz. Yeah.
Definitely an athlete. Probably has the strength advantage, but she's not nearly as fast, not nearly as polished. She says she's got good top control. She hasn't fought the best competition. Thus far, it's like we said earlier, like in the European scene, it's still pretty raw. It's still pretty low level. So, but from what I have seen, she is pretty athletic. Probably has a little bit more pop in her punches than Inoue does, but she's probably just gonna get blasted. Speed kills, and Inoue's got all of that.
Vic? Anything different?
Yeah, I'd have to agree on this. I'd have to agree for the greater part. I mean, Kowalkiewicz, her best win, or her most notable opponent, I should say, was Jasminka Siva at her last fight, who also fought for Invicta. She won by armbar. Inoue's ground game is not going to be the same as Jasminka. It's just not. Inoue's 8-2 as a pro, 6 submission wins. She beat Rollins, as we mentioned, and what was the surprise, I guess. I mean, we knew that she was good, but I mean, I really didn't expect that it was going to look like that. Very solid movement, very precise with her striking, also, which should be noted. She armbarred Alex Chambers. She beat Emi Tomimatsu in deep. She also beat Emi Fujino. I think that was in Jewels. I don't exactly remember right now. But
it's Deep Jewels. Deep and Jewels are the same promotion right now.
Oh, I thought they were like.
Bot Jewels. So Deep runs all the Jewels shows.
Well, I'm not as well versed in Japanese MMA as you guys. I'm sorry.
All right.
Well. Yeah. Either way, Inoue, I think, could very well run away with this unless there's some sort of nasty surprises that we're not privy to here. But I really have. There's a lot of upside to Inoue, and this is going to be good. I expect her to be in top form.
Quick question: should she change the shorts? Is that the worst part of Inoue's game? Is her fight shorts?
Possibly, because like it looked like she had her older brother's shorts on that side. So
yeah,
like that was pretty bad.
That's the one thing I see her fight and I'm like, just like get some shorts that fit. You look like you're wearing your dad's clothes.
Exactly.
Oh God, your dad didn't go to work today, did he? Yeah.
But so finally,
well, it's not as bad as
Oh no, what were you saying? Well, you're on a slight delay.
No, it's what we were. Yeah, it's what we were going to. What you were about to get into with Takayo Hashi with her leopard print thing. That's a little distracting too, but it's not on the same level. Never mind.
Yeah, there's only one there's only a few people that can pull off the leopard print thing. And the only person is Sei Watanabe, and that's just because she was just knocking chicks out left and right back in the day. But that's maybe a Phil Davis could pull it off, something like that. But definitely, she's not doing it.
You think we could
2
see
Chainz and Jim Carrey would probably be able to do it, but that's about it. I'd say it's a very short list.
Maybe we could see like Rin Nakai in a full cat suit fighting.
My God.
Oh God. Oh no. See, there's already so much weirdness with how they do that with her image, and I don't understand it. She's not a bad fighter, but it's like, dude, it's all this weird stuff around you I wish wasn't there, so we could focus on your athleticism and your fights. Well, but stuff with the Beatles and the cat suit. The cat suit I don't mind as much, but like the Beatles and the thing with the tub with this awkward thing. I don't get what the point of any of this is.
But do you think that's her management, or do you think that's
her management?
At this point, I think it's her.
No, that's her management.
Yeah.
That's definitely going to be her management. If I remember correctly, there's been in I don't want to say, exactly who it was, because if I'm wrong, I don't want them to catch any flack for it. But they said, basically her managers believes her husband, and basically what he says goes. So
That I could okay. That's a dynamic that I was not aware of that kind of relationship dynamics between athletes and their like business management. It's always shady when it's somebody that's like related to you or that's like really intimate with you. Like you see like the tennis coaches, they all have their dads and it's always this weird, it's always their
yeah,
dad and it's this weird whole dynamic with women tennis players and their fathers on the sideline coaching them.
yeah. But the thing is, like with her, he's manager, husband,
Yeah, I
and
guess
trainer. And there's nobody else really above him.
that's probably more of a
Hmm?
Did we lose him?
No,
Nope.
did we lose you?
Yeah.
You're on a delay.
I'm still here.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you were talking
Okay,
and
there you go.
you drifted off.
No, I was gonna say something. Now let's now Dio can go ahead. It's
No, he was done.
Yeah, I was done.
You,
Okay, well, I was just saying it's kind of it's almost that same kind of weirdness that you see in toddlers and tiaras to a degree, where it's like, oh,
God.
this is not productive. This is not. In some cases it'll work, but in some cases, this is really. I don't like this shit.
Yeah, no. I mean, it has its novelty. I mean, I saw a lot of that in like when I visited Japan. There's some things that I just don't have an explanation for, but yeah, that's not too uncommon.
Yeah.
So that's was it that Cyborg fought last, who was before she was in mixed martial artist, she was a dominatrix, and find some pretty interesting videos out there if you look hard enough. But
I mean, I'm not gonna fault her for having a side job that's what we would consider unconventional. I'm pretty sure that mixed martial arts wasn't maybe paying the bills for her at that time. So it's like I can kind of see that. What she does in her free time in that case isn't as big a deal, but I'm sure we could go weirder.
Well,
That's really what bothers me.
You're not really talking about a whole bunch of gender conformists when you're talking about women fighters.
No.
Yeah, I guess.
And the only other thing that I would want to point out, like when it comes to fighters like Rin Nakai, where most Japanese mixed martial artists, period, is they don't have a Western style of training where it's mixed martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
You had you're training everything all at the same time. You're training to defend the shot, and submissions and everything. You have judo here, then you go to another gym for wrestling, and then you go to another gym for kickboxing, and say if you grew up doing Kyokushin karate, then you go to another gym for that. There's no let's put it all together.
Well, nowhere is it more obvious than Mizuki Inoue, whose style is like the cobbling together of 5 different martial arts that she obviously practices quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's no smoothness to her transition game. It's like I box really amazingly well, and then I'm in the clinch game, and I have a good clinch game, and then I'm wrestling, and then I'm grappling, and nothing's like...
There's no fluidity to it. She's good at all of those things, or great at most of those things. But, when it comes to meshing it all together into one fluid thing, like that is going to be what keeps her from the upper echelons.
Yeah.
Of strawweight, which eventually I think she probably will move up to the UFC.
Yeah.
Give it like 2 or maybe 3 more fights in Invicta, and then she'll be there. But that's going to be something that she's definitely going to have to, fix.
Which brings us to our main event now. We have Barb Honchak facing Takeo Hashi, another, seasoned vet off the Japanese scene with a pretty good record for being a vet off the Japanese scene. It's usually pretty hard to build a decent record on that, fighting over there. She's got wins over Roxanne Modafferi and Hitomi Akano, and losses to Kat Zingano and Tara LaRosa and Sarah Kaufman. And she's fighting Barb Honchak. Watching video on this, unfortunately, it seems mostly what she is a brawler. She's very much, wants to get in, throw hands, sit down right in front of her opponent, and try and take over a striking battle, which Barb Honchak, that's a style that plays right into her, as we saw with Leslie Smith. I mean, even when Leslie Smith could be competitive at range, she couldn't keep the fight there enough or do well enough consistently there to win it. Vic, your thoughts?
Well, Takayo Hashi is, first off, she's 37, and it's not the same as Barb Honchak, who is 35, but hasn't. I don't think she's been fighting for as long as Hashi has. Hashi has some losses against some very solid opposition in Kat Zingano, the 2010 version of Tara LaRosa, and the Strikeforce fight that she had against Sarah Kaufman. She did beat Hitomi Kano after, well, I guess she lost to her, and then she had a rematch in which she won. She beat Modafferi, Amanda Buckner, Shizuka Sugiyama, which was, I think that was also in Jules. Very content to stay in somebody's guard and do damage from there. Her striking defense isn't really where it needs to be, and that's going to get her. It's going to be a short night for her if that's going to be the case. Although she's always trying to improve position, I don't think it's going to be enough. You know, you got Honchak, who's 9-2 as a pro with 2 submission wins, a lot of decisions, but they're not exactly controversial decisions. She's really had some pretty solid performances. Losses to Angela Magana and Kat Zingano, no shame there at all. She's beaten a whole bunch of really solid names: Felice Herrig, Ansaroff, Aisling Daly, Vanessa Porto, Leslie Smith. Very, very good at that upper body control. Very good at holding someone up in the clinch and suffocating them from there. Excellent standing defense from what I've seen, and she's always looking to finish. So you're not going to see a lot of stalling here, and you're not going to be worried about this being necessarily boring if Honchak can help it. So this is going to be good.
Damon?
This is a showcase fight. Everything, it's straight up now. This is a showcase fight. They both share similar opponent in Kat Zingano, which I believe Bob Honchak actually trains with Kat Zingano now. The difference between, like, if you look at them both, one has stayed the same since that loss, and the other has grown leaps and bounds, both physically, skill-wise. Barb Honchak, that was a pretty, she actually did pretty well against Kat Zingano, who at that point was just, she is an animal of an athlete, male or female. And Takayo Hashi got lit up most of the match before she got slammed through the mat. So that's, Hashi's got, most of her losses are against, I guess you would say the mid to higher echelon of women's mixed martial arts, but she's, this is a showcase fight. It's not a squash match by any means. She's very tough. Her brawling style can, cause fits for some people that just don't know how to handle somebody that's just going to continue coming forward. But yeah, this is Barb Honchak's got better wrestling, better striking, better fight IQ, more athletic. So it's, I would definitely, I would lean towards this fight getting finished before the 3rd round, but wouldn't be surprised if Hashi stays around until the end of this fight.
Yeah, I mean, Hashi seems pretty tough, and Honchak, for all of her skill, is not a power puncher.
She's not a Kat Zingano. She's like, I don't think we're going to see any slam KOs in this one. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably bet on it being a decision. You've got somebody who's got a great chin and is known for being, tough and in fights against somebody who's known for being technical, but not necessarily a finishing machine. I mean, Barb Honchak tends to be the sort of fighter that will, stay ahead, get ahead and stay ahead with consistent offense rather than really punishing somebody when she gets an opening. But, yeah, I mean, Hashi's kind of a testament to how far you can get in MMA with raw aggression. That's the truth, especially, when your opposition's not amazing, you can get a long way just by being aggressive and keeping up a constant high level out or a high output. and then you meet somebody like Honchak who, can do that and then does it much more technically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I wonder though if Hashi, and I'm sorry to jump in, but I wonder if how maybe it's a sign of how far athleticism was able to take you, because I don't see that surviving for much longer, not with the state of the sport, or at
Mhm.
least the women's side of the sport and how it's been growing and improving. I don't really think that you're going to see too many people like Hashi left in another 2, 3 years.
Well, I mean, you still see them in MMA. Even on the men's side, you still see guys. I mean, and maybe they end up being a bit more technical, but a lot of winning at the lower levels of men's MMA is just who has the higher output, who strikes more, who's more willing to engage.
Yeah,
A lot of
that's
the
also
reason
true.
talented youngsters lose is because, or youngsters. What am I, 30? Come on. Um,
Some whippersnappers.
talented
Wow.
fighters early in
Wow.
their career lose just because they tend to they'll tend to hang back and wait for their opportunities and wait for their opportunities, and in the meantime, they're eating shots. But
Yeah. Mm.
any final thoughts on the card? I mean, that sort of wraps up. It's an Invicta show that promises a lot of fun action fights, but it's a step down from their last card, to be
Yeah.
honest. I mean, I think any final thoughts from either of you guys?
I think with the improved schedule that they're going to have, I don't see them having them back to back to back to back to back to back to back, because you will run out of, I don't care how many fighters they have in Tough Enough and other amateur promotions and things like that. They won't be able to keep that up without sacrificing quality. So I'd probably see from now on, we'll probably see one every 2, maybe every 3 months, as opposed to this back-to-back type deal. It's like you said, it's not the most stacked card, but with Invicta cards, it usually tends to be pretty exciting. They come out to prove a point. Unless they have that stifling style like Kat Kampal or Sarah McMahon in her earlier fights. They tend to go out there and put it all out, all on the line. So should still be a pretty exciting night of fights. I was actually kind of looking forward to Ayaka Hamasaki versus Herika Tabercio, who that was scrapped because Tabercio had visa issues, which kind of seems to be popping up more and more lately with a lot of Brazilian fighters. So, yeah, that's about it.
Vic, you any closing thoughts on the card?
Yeah, I was going to mention I'm also disappointed that Hamasaki, we won't be able to see her fight. I mean, Divorce is also fun to watch, but not as much as Hamasaki. That promised to sort of round out the action portion of the card. In terms of name value, probably not as much, but this is also, I guess, the equivalent of sort of a mid to upper level UFC event, in the sense that, look, this is how divisions move along. We want to showcase contendership, and this is sort of laying a bit of foundation for future events. Certainly we won't have month-to-month events. That's kind of that's pretty much what we're seeing so far. Otherwise, it would have announced something to that degree. But either way, I'm happy with this card as it is for now, and at least for what it promises. And this is not. I'm sure we'll have better things, but this card as it stands, I'm sure we'll see a few cards like this down the line, and I don't think it's a bad thing, because at least these fighters are getting some exposure before they're able to move them on to better, to bigger showcase fights and things of that nature. So this is really building up a lot of these fighters who are making their pro debuts. For example, a lot of people from the regional scene that are citing that most fans aren't aware of. It's going to be out there, and this is one of those necessary evils of MMA. You're mixing up some veterans with some lesser-known names, and that's actually quite a positive in the long run. So this is healthy. This is good.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, when you're getting all women's MMA card, there's still something special about it enough that, like, I'm going to tune in no matter what. It still seems like must-watch MMA to me. Invicta's always promised really exciting, fun, and fast-paced cards. I mean, this thing might be over in like 2 hours.
Kind of like the WEC, like that. They have taken over the place where the WEC had in my heart for so many years. Where people tend to just remember like the last 2 years of the WEC when it was just action, great. But before that, you still had those fights where it was like this guy versus this guy, and let's see what happens. So still must see TV for me, or rather must see streaming at this point. So.
Yeah, there's something also to be said for how they and this is actually going all the way back to the first event. It's kind of lost that feeling, but I remember like the first 2 events felt like a party. Like the fighters came out and it was like, yeah, I'm on the internet, yeah, watch me, I'm gonna fight, and more people are gonna see me worldwide. And so it's kind of lost a little bit of that, but they do still have a sort of a theme of fun, which is always which is good. It brings something different, and we kind of need that right now. So
we do see a lot more dancing. It tends.
Yes.
I feel like we do see a lot more dancing.
Yes, we need some Pride FC level theatrics though.
Yeah.
Once that happens, then it's all good in the hood. So.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. We've talked pretty thoroughly about this card. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up on Facebook. I know it doesn't seem like that shit's important. It really is. I swear. Of course, follow us on follow MMANation.com for more of these videos. We're going to have all sorts of other stuff this week. We got another prospect show on Friday. I believe Nate's going to be doing some other shows, and then we're going to have Knuckle Up next week and all that. And you can find Dio at I'm Just Dio on Twitter, and Vic at Vic M Rodriguez on Twitter, and me at D Zane Simon. And, tune in next time. Thanks for stopping by, guys.